Welcome to Sales Training for Podcasters, the podcast designed to better your sales process. We'll be sharing tools, tips, and techniques, whether you love sales or hate sales. If you've got a product or service to sell and a podcast, you've come to the right place. Now, here's your hosts, podcast strategists Doug Sandler and JJ Flizanes.
Welcome to Sales Training for Podcasters. I'm JJ Flizanes, one of your co-hosts. Today's episode is an interview that was done of me on Christine O'Donnell's show, Podcast Coaching with Christine. So I wanted to play this episode for you. Doug was also on her show. How we met was on Facebook. Doug and I happened to be away for a weekend or a night, and I saw a post in a group that said, "Who is podcasting full-time and making money?" And I said, me. And it was a women's group. And I said me, and then I got asked to be on Christine's show. So I apologize in advance that I was a bit of a fire hose. I get excited. I have a lot of fire signs in me. So I get excited about sharing this and quite passionate. And I thought a lot of what I talked about would be useful for you also. Stay tuned for next week. Also, Christine interviewed Doug, and we will also be interviewing Christine for this show. So before we get to today's episode, I also want to invite you to a webinar that we're doing, a free webinar called The 5 Common Costly Mistakes Podcasters Make with Monetization. Again, that's 5 common costly mistakes podcasters make with monetization. And you can register for that. It is happening Tuesday, February 23rd at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. It is free, and there will be a replay. So if you can't make it live, you can register to get the replay. And you can go to turnkeypodcast.com/mistakes. Again, that's turnkeypodcast.com/mistakes. And I will put that in the show notes so that you don't forget and you have a link to click. So we hope you can make the webinar live. That would be great to meet you and have you ask us some questions. Otherwise, sign up for the replay, turnkeypodcast.com/mistakes. I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Okay, I am excited to share this week's episode with you. JJ has so much energy. I feel like she just pumped me up throughout our entire interview together, and she has so much wonderful information to share. Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. On today's episode, we have JJ Flizanes, an empowerment strategist, fitness expert, and author, and she currently runs her podcast full-time and sells her coaching packages through her podcast. So you have 10 shows.
5 that are active every week right now. But I have a cooking show, which is a video show, an exercise show, which is a video show, that are not currently having any uploads to them. I also have another podcast with a friend, Something to Whine About. So there are more shows, and some of them aren't being put episodes out as regularly, but I have 5 that go out every single week.
That takes a lot of commitment. Also, awesome for being able to, I feel like we all have so many different ideas, right? And we want to do a podcast on this or a podcast on that, and you're doing it.
I am. Well, the very quick and dirty short story is I started my podcast in 2014 called Fit to Love, and it had 6 days a week. And it was literally not to do anything except uncover and use as market research as to what does the world want from me? Where is the best place for me to show up? What resonates with people right now? What do they want to hear, take, know, and do? And I had clients, I've been a personal trainer for 20 years. I'd had clients that were doing the weight loss and the fitness and the nutrition thing, but really weren't into the life coaching part, weren't into the spiritual part. And my journey had continued to unfold. And I'm like, guys, you need this. You need the whole package. You're not like, it's a symptom. Weight gain is a symptom. And so I wasn't satisfied in my work with my clients because they had only come to me for 1 or 2 things and I had 10 things to offer. So when I finally learned about podcasting, and podcasting had been around, I just didn't understand what it was. When I finally learned what it was, and I thought, wow, that's what I can do. So I started Fit to Love. It had 6 days a week, Movement Mondays, Tasty Tuesdays, Wellness Wednesdays, Thoughtful Thursdays, Freedom Fridays, and Sexy Saturdays. And I did 2 seasons and 350 episodes. The show was good. I had good feedback from people who were clients of mine. Of course, the clients at the time really loved all the videos because it was nutrition and exercise. And so that's what they were already enrolled in. But I'd had a podcast mentor at the time who basically said, you need to stick it out. Like, don't change anything until you have success with this first show. And I thought, no, that's not the right advice for me, because I have so many different expertise, like literally, that each show, like you don't know by Movement Monday that I'm an expert in biomechanics and anatomy. You don't know by Tasty Tuesdays that I'm teaching people how to make easy paleo, gluten, and dairy-free cooking things. You don't know by Freedom Fridays that I'm talking about law of attraction and astrology and numerology and intuition and meditation. I needed to separate them. And so that's what I did. So at the end of, I'd say October, November of 2016, so almost 2 years or a little over 2 years, I led with the very first show, which had absolutely no products, no lead generation, no funnels. I had nothing to offer them. It was my Freedom Friday, which was my guilty pleasure show. And I put it out there with zero expectation. It had the least number of episodes. I was just going to repurpose it and see what happened. And I think I put it out either the end of October or beginning of November 2016. By December of 2016, I had people writing to me telling me that, oh my God, the show's amazing and it's changing my life. And I just listened to this episode because they could download. I uploaded all of the episodes. So it didn't start with one episode. It started with 10 or 15 episodes. So they were downloading it and getting results and reaching out to me. And simultaneously, I was thinking, what do I need in my life right now? And what I needed was to have accountability to do the practices, the law of attraction practices every day. So I put together a beta test group of about 10 people, friends and clients, and made a few audios and kind of put the framework together. That was December 2016. And in January, I launched my first 30-day manifestation challenge on the show. And to date, that is my number one lead generator and giveaway to get people into my ecosystem on all the shows. So I started offering it on all the different podcasts. And again, it's my number one show now. I was nominated for a People's Choice Award in religion and spirituality. If you go to Apple, I'm on the list. I'm on the top list of the top shows all the time. And it continues to be my most popular show and now my most profitable. But what I did that I didn't do the first time. Again, the first time was people start a podcast for many different reasons. And I enjoyed that my reason didn't have to do with a desired outcome. It just had to do with getting information. And so I didn't mind pivoting and I didn't mind rebranding and I didn't mind doing any of that because I wasn't banking on the show necessarily making me any money right away. And it did. I did get clients and I sold some books and some products, online products, but it wasn't the focal point. I wanted to bust out as much content as I possibly could because I have a lot of it. And I thought, let me just put it out there and see what happens. So I used it as a testing ground. And now I can say successfully that my number one lead generator on my podcast, and I have no interest in ever doing ads again or any kind of joint ventures or affiliate marketing towards my stuff because it's so effective in creating people in all kinds of programs, products, and services that I have.
Why do you think it is about podcasting? So if people are trying to figure out, hey, is podcasting the right thing for me for lead generation? Do you think you just found your sweet spot, your special niche? Or do you think that there is something specific to podcasting that lends to lead generation?
Yes, I think that there's something specific to podcasting that leads to lead generation because I've sort of done all of it. So I mentioned before we started recording, my partner in crime, Doug Sandler, who owns Turnkey Podcast Productions, he made money through podcasting in a much different way than I did. And he has a production company. And when we got together and I was listening to his coaching calls and I was hearing about his clients and they were very successful in helping people to launch their shows. But what was missing is I would hear and I would know that, some of the clients who really treated their podcast like a business up front. They invested money in it. They had all the expectation in the world they were going to make their money back. They weren't. And I could hear, and I was starting to learn why. And I turned to Doug and I said, we need to do a mastermind for podcasters because there are so many different ways to make money in podcasting. And between the two of us, I think we've done every single way except maybe one or two like weird offshoots that no one would ever even think about. So I have a very specific position on, depending on why you got into podcasting, making sure that it becomes your zone of genius, that you use it as a platform to showcase who you are, what you're doing in the world, but in a way that lights you up more than you care about what the other people on the other side are going to do. Because since it's such an intimate medium and people are listening in their ears, and you're going with them everywhere, in the car and on their walks and while they're cooking dinner, like it becomes a relationship. And in that relationship, they have to know, like, and trust you. And because they're not looking at you and because they're not working with you, they have to feel you. And so if you're just a host putting up a show that you don't actually care that much about and you just really want to make money, people can feel that. And when they feel that, they may or may not respond to that depending on what you're offering. So I've been specializing in helping people who are mission-based get to the place where their show becomes their outlet, their center stage for who they really are in the world. And then you build the business around that because of how podcasting is unlike any other marketing medium. You can put together joint venture partnerships, you can do launches, you can do ads, you can do perfect funnels, but whether or not they actually sustain you, they're a lot of effort. It takes a little while because it's cultivating a relationship. But I think podcasting is magic for that. And it's because you're really just being you if you are being you. Now, some people aren't themselves. Some people show up as a host. I have to be very vanilla. I can't step on any toes. I shouldn't be controversial. I shouldn't say anything people were going to get mad about. Oh my God. And so what happens is you clench all of your creativity in your voice, and then you wonder why no one's listening or no one reaches out to you because you're not taking a stance for anything.
What do you think it is, though? I talk to a lot of people, and they're so getting to the confidence that you have, JJ, is so hard for so many people because it takes vulnerability and it takes strength to actually be really you in front of the microphone or in front of the camera. And I mean, from my own experience, as a TV news reporter, I was a robot for 10 years in front of the camera. I knew how to be very hi, I'm Christine O'Donnell live at the scene. And that I felt very comfortable being that person. And when I moved to Los Angeles, the anchors started pushing more to get me to share who I was in front of the camera. And those were the days that made me feel the most uncomfortable because I wasn't used to that. But those were also the days when I would get the most emails from people in the audience or Instagram DMs or just tweets where people hey, I saw this. I thought of that when I saw you. And it was real. I feel like I'm getting to know you more because they threw you out of your comfort zone and I got a sneak peek of who you really are. And so it took me a long time to realize that's what people connect with because I was so used to being just the reporter on the scene. But it's a really vulnerable place when you start sharing yourself in front of people. And so where did it come from? Where did your confidence come from?
Well, I've been living this, and I'm that person that, I've been on camera and I've been on stage since I was 3. When you're in the entertainment world, when you're in a performing role, even if you're you in a performing role, you're performing, you're not being. And I knew that I wanted to be me. I just had to find the value in what me meant. And astrology is my thing. And I teach an astrology course too. And so I'm a Pisces with a lot of Sag. And what that boils down to is the feeling part, the heart, the very, very emotional on one hand, but I have so much fire. I've got three placements in Sag and a placement in Aries. So there's 4 fire signs in my regular natal chart. And that means I have a lot of passion. I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of curiosity. And because I've been learning my whole life and questioning things my whole life, I can't live with myself when it's so uncomfortable to step outside of something that's out of integrity for me. And I've learned along the way to be aware of that. And I've sort of that old soul, I've known these kinds of things. I've been asking questions. I've been pushing up against, parental and family and government and leader, whatever. Just because you're older and have a position doesn't mean anything to me. You do not get my respect and adoration. You can get my respect as a human, but I don't necessarily believe you. I'm not going to agree with you. I've always had my own mind to think of things and questioned everything. And that was not taught to me. That is who I came in incarnate as. So in my life, especially with when I said I did this Freedom Friday Law of Attraction Day, I would use it on myself, and I was afraid to talk about it for a long time. That's why I did the show, and that's why I had to do the show the way I did it. I had to pad it. I couldn't just come out of the gate and be like, I'm an expert in law of attraction, because who can say that? Nobody can say that. I mean, Esther Hicks can say that, but Esther wouldn't even say it. She'd say Abraham is. So you can't step into that because there's no course you can take, and I don't even care about courses and certifications. But when it came down to, I put that out there, and I wasn't afraid to put it out there because I wasn't attached to it, because I didn't think anything would happen. And then all of a sudden when things started to happen, and I had my first live event that I pulled the audience directly from my podcast, first live event, January of 2018. And I stood in front of them, and they came from all over the country, Hawaii and Canada. And I said, guys, I'm not an expert in law of attraction. And I swear to God, they all went, yes, you are. And I was like, okay, all right, I'll stand in that. And, I wasn't confident out of the gate because I was stepping into a new version of who I wanted to be, knowing I could do it, but not trusting that anyone else would get what I wanted, or that my methods were all going to work for people. So I padded it with other experts. Hey, come to this weekend. I'm going to, there's 5 or 6 of us, and you're going to get something. And what I realized was I hid, but it took me an event to do that. Then the next event, I made sure all my stuff was front and center. I still had people say, we want more of you. Okay, next event, even less people. Next event, even less people, until I'm like, okay, I can run this by myself. I can run an entire week-long retreat and change your life by myself. And again, but it takes doing it. You have to do it. You have to fail or screw up or test it or try it. And then you have to be it. And through all this, I got married before I started the show. I got divorced during the show. And then I've, manifested my soulmate life partner also at the same time. And I put it all out there, not in a sloppy, oh my God, poor woe is me way, in a, here's the life lesson. Here's the teaching. Here's what I've learned. Here's what I'm doing. I started my podcast to save my marriage. Nobody knew that until it was over. And I was like, yeah, by the way, the passion behind all of this was also to learn enough and get experts on that he may listen to, because he's not going to listen to me. So maybe if I get people on that he might listen to, we have a chance at having a conversation and having some breakthroughs. So literally the result of my first marriage was a successful show where I reached lots of people who are very happy and appreciative that I stepped out to help their lives and give them all this free content and free tools.
Yeah. What an anecdote to launch your podcast in an effort to save your marriage. And you came out with a successful show, and then you found more of who you are meant to be through that process. And that's just carried over into the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I love how you're talking about how you have to just keep doing stuff, even if you fail, because that's so uncomfortable. You just have to keep moving forward. And I hope people who are listening feel that way, because when you are podcasting, you are on a journey. And what you're podcasting about right now might not be what you're podcasting about 2 years from now. And it might be in 2 years that you've got a huge show that's now monetizable, and you've got a huge lead magnet that happens to also fulfill your soul. So dang, thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Well, I mean, I have a very, very large toolbox that I continue to research and put things in, not at a manic level, quite honestly. Like there are seekers who are never done seeking. Like they find something, they're on to the next thing. They find something, on the next thing. And I'm all about integration. So when you find something that works, then integrate it. And then you kind of should be done with that. unless there's something it doesn't address. So for instance, I'll give you a for instance, I use law of attraction in all the things that I do. I use astrology in all the things that I do. I still work with people for health and weight loss, but now I know when they come to the show, they know who I am and they know what they're getting involved in. And when they reach out and say, hey, I've listened to you for a year and a half and I'm ready to work with you, I know that astrology and intuition and meditation and all that kind of stuff is not going to scare them off, because the people that I was working with before didn't like that. They didn't want it. They didn't sign up for that. And I started with them before I started my show. And as I grew, they did not grow with me. They listened. They resisted. Some of them made small little incremental changes after me beating them over the head for years. And it was really annoying. But I love them to death and I wish them all well. I just outgrew what our relationship was. And so for me, podcasting has been, like the using law of attraction and teaching it in the way that I do, in the way that I live it. See, Christine, I'm not teaching something I'm not experiencing. I'm literally just sharing what works for me and that I see. I look around at people who are doing things and I go, oh, if they just did this, they'd feel so much better. They would get what they want. They'd stop upper limiting themselves. So Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap, was one of those moments where when I read it the first time, it was as I was getting ready to do my first event. So I was already taking a big leap. So it didn't really hit me quite as much as the second time I read it. The second time I read it, it was with Doug and I, and we did a bunch of episodes in my inner circle in preparation for Gay to come on the show. And it was life-changing. It was life-changing because it gave a structure to when you talked about like doing things outside your comfort zone. We all, regardless whether you think law of attraction exists or not, call it your comfort zone. We all have a temperature of how much love, success, and abundance we're allowing in. This is how good I'm allowed to feel based on how my parents treated me, based on how I treat me, my thoughts about myself. We have a limit to that. And even though we want more, we haven't exercised our ability to receive more. So the stepping outside the comfort zone is really just saying to the universe and to your subconscious, I believe in me. Even if this doesn't work out the way I want it to, I believe in me. And I'm going to try to allow myself to grow into the next version of myself, which can allow in more joy, success, love, and abundance. And so using those two tools right there, I mean, that's a life game changer right there. So anyone who's out there and thinks I've been podcasting, I don't have any results that I'm excited about. Well, maybe it's because you haven't been meant to get it until now. Maybe this conversation is going to spark some interest and whoa, there's a whole new way to do this. Most people aren't reflective enough about how they show up in the world. When the more popular you get, the more positive and negative reviews you get. And I always find it funny when someone asks me to talk less. And I have recently, instead of saying I'm JJ Flizanes, host, I now say host and producer. And I very gingerly on a show said, I appreciate all of you that listen, that realize that I produce this show. It is a business and it does profit, but I produce the show. And so for many of you, this is completely free. And it has been for 6 years, right? So it's always amazing to me when someone wants to say, the host talks too much. Yeah, it's my show. Go away. I'm not going to change what I do for you, non-paying, contributing person to my life. So again, I take the stance of even if you're going into your show as a business, make it a show that you love to do and make it a show that lights you up and make it a show that you talk about things you want to talk about. Forget everybody else. Who cares? You will attract the right people when you show up as who you are, as authentically, as honestly, and as big and bold as you can be. That is when you're going to get the right people in your downline and in your mix and in your funnels.
So I really do want to talk to you about how you turned your podcast into a business, right? Like we connected over, we were in the same Facebook group, She Podcast. It's a great podcast group on Facebook if you want to check it out. And someone asked, hey, is there anyone out there who has figured out how to make their podcast their full-time job and sells coaching packages within their podcast? And you were like, me, that's me.
Well, that was Niaje Wallace who asked that question. And she's been on my show and I've been on her show. And I've actually seen her pitch. She's actually pitched at a place where I was one of the podcasters she was pitching to. And she was fabulous and amazing. And at the time I said yes, but I didn't put her on for probably 2 years because I didn't know where to put her. And actually we did a show on racism and the law of attraction. So it was it was like the right divine timing to have that conversation with her. And it was a very vulnerable. I mean, I was sweating bullets before and after, and still today, where I disclaim that, look, I'm not going to get this right. And you're not all going to love it. And I'm sorry in advance. Just know that my heart is to start a conversation worth having. So back to the question that she asked about a full-time business, because she actually asked her after I interviewed her, she started asking me questions. And then after she interviewed me, she kept asking me questions about transitioning and how, somebody does this kind of business. And like I said, I didn't make a lot of money in the first 2 years because that wasn't the goal. And I will say that, so for those of you thinking, then why would you do so much work? I needed to archive my information. I still to date will say this is what you're going to go listen to now. And I will outline 5 or 10 different shows and send a couple worksheets, and someone can go do their homework. I archive fitness shows when I have a new client. Here are the exercises, and here are the links to the videos to watch those exercises to remind you how to do them when you're doing them on your own. I needed to archive my information. So to me, those 2 years were spent creating content that would be usable over and over and over again. So it wasn't like I just made up shows hoping someone would listen. I literally made them for the current clients I was working with and clients I'd be working with in the future. So no time was wasted. No money was wasted. Moving into having a show where now people are active and they're reaching out, and I'm getting daily emails. From there, I actually think I started, people would sign up for coaching packages. I was really trying to market the live event that I had in January of 2018. And I've had 6 events since. So I was doing 2 events a year. I now have 2 masterminds, one for my show and one with Doug and I for podcasters. So all of this has been coming out of a need that I can fill. I'm hearing what they need. I'm giving them information that's free, but I know they need more than that. And the ones that know, I have a very strong call to action every time when I know I can help them. Now, if they come to me for something I don't do, then I can't help them. But when I'm seeing these posts, when I'm hearing what they're saying, or when I'm using like a client interaction or any interaction, ex-husband, when I'm using that as my muse for that day's recording or something, I'll mention it. And I'll just mention, hey, if you need help with this, blah, blah, blah. Or if I'm having a guest on and there's a particular topic that I've also had experience with, I'll let them know. Obviously I promote the guests when I have them, but I've never been one that's needed guests. I know so many people in all of these industries that I use the same person 20 times when it comes to nutrition. Why would I go anywhere else? She encompasses everything that I want. She does homeopathy. She does flower essences. She does every kind of, nobody knows more than Jeannie Peters, as far as I'm concerned, Nourishing Wellness, and delivers it in such a heartfelt, loving way that isn't restrictive. So why would I need to find 10 different people to talk about the thing that she can talk about 10 different times? I'm about relationship building. So in terms of packages and, selling things, and it's just been, again, takes a little time. And you mentioned the confidence. It takes confidence also to know what you're offering. And I created a package. This was funny. I forget how this happened. It's all intuitive. I'll get a hit, a download. And I was like, oh, I do astrology for all my clients, whether they want it or not. I don't necessarily tell them if they're not interested. I need to know. Why? Because how you interpret information, what is comfortable to you, I need to know so I know how to better serve you in what I'm going to program for you. And I would not program a Gemini the same way I'd program a Virgo. So those to be opposite programs for those two signs. And of course, it's more than your sun sign. So I realized, I wonder if the people in the audience would want like an astrological reading like I do for my clients, not a generic one, like one specifically about your health or weight loss. So I made the package, and the first day I announced it, I got a sale. I was like, okay, universe says yes, they want this. So I just started building from there. But it was about bringing my knowledge, expertise, and interests to what they need. But I had enough of an interest of conversation to identify that. I wasn't making it up. I wasn't guessing. And I didn't sell anything I didn't know I could profit from. I now make courses based on what they tell me they need. I've got an astrology course, a strengthening intuition course, and I'm creating a confidence course because that's what they tell me they need. And I already know who's going to buy it. Well, the first bunch of them, right? And then if anyone else on the show wants it, then they'll buy it too.
So someone out there who's like, I have had a podcast for over a year now, never really thought about offering a product. I was just kind of hoping that ad companies would want to monetize my show, but it just hasn't, I just don't have the downloads yet. And it's just been frustrating, but I would really love to do this full time. Now I should maybe think about creating a package or an offer. Am I qualified to do a coaching package? Or what would you say to that person who's had a podcast? It's been successful enough to garner an audience, but maybe the audience is 500 people instead of 5,000 people. So what would you say to them?
Those are the podcast clients that I work with because I wanted to go after the people who are already doing it, already committed to it, but frustrated about their results. So here's some things to think about. Depending on, and sometimes you need a brand change. Sometimes you're not speaking to the right audience because you started out doing something very vanilla and being a host. And so nobody takes you seriously, and you haven't put yourself front and center, and you haven't done any teaching segments, and you haven't shared vulnerable stories for them to connect with you. Again, the passion's lacking because you went after the money instead of going after the mission of serving not only your audience, but yourself. So if you've been doing it for a while, know that I don't have a huge audience. I went to an event and Libsyn was there, and Rob looked at my numbers and he was like, whoa. And I'm like, I mean, they're not millions of downloads a month or anything, right? But they're in the top tiers of what, average podcasters, especially now, get. And the unfortunate part is that unless you are Tim Ferriss, you are not going to be living off of sponsorships. Everybody take that out of your mind right now. And I've had sponsors. And when people come to me, like I've had someone recently ask if they could put an ad on the show. And I said no, because what they were offering to me is not worth me putting it on the show. I'd rather use that time to promote my own products and services because I make a lot more money that way, especially when they're evergreen, right? When you give someone a deal and then 5 years later, they're still making money off of you and you're not seeing any of that because it's an evergreen baked in ad. Don't do that. There are a couple different ways to make money quickly. One is guess the client strategy, which we teach, which is you don't even need an audience for that. You can make money. Doug made $40,000 before he even launched his second or third show because he used this strategy, which is very effective, and it can work for anybody. It just is going to work differently. I used it in a coaching way. He uses it in production way. If you want to make money from your audience, you have to get your audience engaged. So how many lead generators do you have? Are they reaching out to you? Do you have them on a Facebook group? Are they on your email list? Are you talking about what you do? Are you offering anything? Because if you're just hoping and praying with your fingers crossed that one day someone's going to figure out that you coach, because see, the perception is, depending on your credentials and the person listening, which that's a lot of misperception right there that can happen right there. They may think you don't even coach. They may not even know that you offer that. So unless you tell somebody on the show that, hey, by the way, I do personal coaching, or come to my website and see if anything works for you. I know a very successful podcaster, friend of mine, we started about the same time. He still offers 20-minute free consultations. I don't offer anything for free. That's my time. But he does. And I don't know how he converts them. I don't know his ratio. I don't know how much money he's making from his show, but he's one of the top guys in the mindfulness space. And he's the sweetest man. And we've done many shows together on mine and on his. And he's still offering those 20-minute free because his mission is he cares and he wants to change lives, and you feel his heart and you feel his love and you feel his generosity. And I wouldn't doubt that he converts most of those people into some kind of coaching program because he just cares and he wants to help. So you have to be out there talking about it. And again, an authentic way that people can feel that you care. And then developing what your audience needs based on what your skill sets are and what you want to be doing. Don't sell something just to sell something to make a buck. If you don't care about it, they'll feel that. Podcast is like a no bullshit. Like you could just feel it, right? Because you're not going to be seeing images and like flashy things. Like there's really nothing that's going to like shield you from the truth. This is like truth serum is podcasting, right?
Yeah, because it's you and the mic, or you and another person in the mic, and you just got to go. Also, do you think, though, people have a hard time staying motivated, right? Like you did it for 2 years, but your mission was never to monetize. Your mission was just to archive your knowledge. And that's not how a lot of podcasters start. They're like, this podcasting thing is really catching. So I'm going to give it a try. We're all quarantined, stuck at home. Gosh, I think there was like 80,000 new podcasts just in the month of April, according to Pod News. So there's a lot of people who are getting into it, but it's how to stay motivated through that time. And I think you're nailing it on the head when it comes to being mission-driven, passion-driven, purposeful, service-based with your podcast, and not necessarily thinking, how do I monetize? Because there is a way to monetize, but you have to think about the other things first. So you're serving your clients.
You can monetize right away. Again, people reaching out to me pretty quickly within 30 to 60 days of launching Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. And I didn't offer anything paid at the time because I didn't know what to offer them yet. I came up with the astrological health analysis like months and months later. And even that, and I could have offered them the other stuff, but I just didn't know if it fit. I didn't know what they needed yet. I needed to get to know them. When we take our podcasting clients, mastermind clients, through our VIP day, we do a 4-hour VIP day as the onboarding. We literally go over every asset they have, every social media portal that they have and how many, their email list, all their products or services or anything they can offer. And we combine so people can start making money quickly. And it doesn't have to be from your show, because the show's a long-term strategy. But what it is it's one of those long-term, like when you invest, it's a long-term strategy, but it's going to keep paying and keep paying and keep paying when you hit your stride. And sometimes it's about finding the right message, finding the right brand, finding the right offers. And you can't give up because you sold this thing over here and then you went to do it on a podcast and it didn't work. It doesn't mean that it's not going to work. It just might mean, for me, it was about the branding, right? I have so many people that when they know my story and they say to me, thank you for doing Spirit, Purpose, and Energy, I wouldn't have found you otherwise.
I think that you're resonating with a lot of people. I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about my own funnels and what I've got here and here and here. And I think you're so on point, and I really respect that. But it also can be really overwhelming for podcasters. And I think that people are like, where should I focus my time? Where should I focus my energy? And it can be confusing and it can be a journey. And then you try something and you fail and you have to keep going. Every time you fail, you have to keep going. And and I think because of who you are and everything that you believe in, it's helped you to keep pushing you forward. And you've done it and you've lived it for years. But I think people now who are entering the podcasting space are like, oh, I pitched my product on a podcast and they had all these listeners, but nobody bought it. So I guess I'm just not meant to do it. Like, this isn't for me. And that's not true.
No. And if you have that little resilience, then quit now and get out, because you can't care that much about what you're talking about if that's all it's going to take for you to stop. So again, it's just a different medium. You're not standing in a booth selling a product. Hello, here's what my thing does for you. Goodbye. You're building a relationship. And if you're deciding, I've wasted so much money as an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur now for almost 20 years. And I remember every great idea I would have about what my clients needed, I'd make a product. Oh my God, I had so many products, like literally made a product. Like I would be filming it. I would record it. I would make the CDs. I would make the covers. I'd do the binders. I had the whole packaging. I'd spend all this time and money making a product before I ever tested it in the sales arena. I knew they needed it, but they didn't want to buy it. So when it comes to my show, I don't make anything until I sell it first. So that's how I make my courses. I sell the course as a live course. I get paid for the course as I'm creating it. And then it becomes an evergreen course that I'll get paid on forever, that I now don't have to do anything about.
So how do you do that? Do you poll your audience while in your podcast? Do you have like a survey in your show notes, or do you just constantly engage and ask for feedback? And then when you get that feedback, you're like, okay, that's the thing I'm going to make. And then you do it. And then there's like a wait list until it's created.
So I have 2 different Facebook groups. The one is my 30-day manifestation challenge group, which is free. And it's been going on now for a couple of years. And it's not huge. It's about 1,000 people, but what it is highly vetted. Everybody that is in that group listens to my show. Everyone that's in that group is on my email list. You do not get in unless you fill out a form and I double check that you're in my email system. This is not an open group. Nobody can join unless you listen to my show. It's very specific. So because of that, I have a low attrition rate. Not a lot of people leave. When I first started, I opened it up to other people and I was like, oh, everybody come to the manifestation challenge. There's free tools. But then people would come get the free tools and leave, because they weren't coming because of me or knowing the work that I was going to do with them. Now, when people come in, they've been listening for years. They're huge fans. They want the community. They want the like-mindedness. I will go to that group, and it's from that group, when that group is super engaged, and definitely during a manifestation challenge, it's engaged, and somewhat engaged in between. I ask them. But then here's the other thing, that it came to me again, another one of those like intuitive things, and it probably didn't even happen until I'm going to say October. Actually, I didn't even I announced it at my manifestation boot camp. I said, how many of you would join if I did a membership podcast. Here's my note to all of you thinking memberships is the way to go. There's so much bad information about how to make money in podcasting. And most people are like, oh, you have a lot of people sell a little thing. And then a lot of people will buy your little thing and you'll make a little bit of money. And it's like, that's going to keep you poor forever. I had to learn that one the hard way. Do not start a membership until you have a high level of engagement. I had a high level engagement. So I started a membership site. It's a podcast, separate podcast they pay for. And there's a Facebook group, and I do a once a month live coaching, and we do all kinds of things. I mean, I'm over delivering 10 times over in terms of like, we're currently on a 10-day keto plan. And then we've done the fasting mimicking diet. Next month, we're doing a manifestation challenge just in that group. It is super active and super committed. But most people go, oh, I'll start a membership. It'll be low cost. That means a lot of people will buy it, but you can't get 5 people to write you an email in a month telling you how they love the show. Do not start a membership. It is too much work for a small amount of people. So if you're going to monetize, get some help. And, if I can offer, Doug and I do a sales mapping process for podcasters. And I can send you a video on the webinar. You can watch it if you're interested. And we literally walk through many different, like, what is your sales strategy? From what to what to what? How does it get implemented? Where do you put it? Is it on the show? Is it off the show? Or do you need to do a webinar? How do we start making money from this? And then how do we make a production schedule that honors what you want to be talking about, puts in offers that convert or offers that we can test until we find what works. But you don't want to be making up what you think your people need unless your people are talking to you, right? You have to have engagement to create the things that they're going to buy. I did a poll in the Facebook group and I said, here's some ideas. I get ideas all the time. Like, oh, I'm going to do a coaching program on like I do a lot of imago therapy with people. And there's only one thing in particular, like one of the exercises that it's like life-changing for me and I share it with others. So I said, oh, what if we do like an imago group where we have accountability for that? And they're like, oh yeah, we like that. And I'm like, oh, well, we can do I have so many ideas. And so I list like 3 or 4 of them and then I make a poll and they tell me which one they want. And then whichever one wins, then I scheduled it, I sold it, they bought it, we did it. It's up there now. So now I have 2 products that were made and I got paid before I even made them. Yeah. So the bottom line for any entrepreneur, I don't care if it's podcasting or not, sell it first, make it later. If nobody buys it, you don't got to make it. So don't waste your time deciding you think you know what's best for people if they're not going to pay for it.
Boom. Mic drop. Thank you for that. Do you want to share a little bit more about your top selling offer or something that our audience might be interested in? The people who listen to this podcast are people who are just launching or they've launched and they're still looking for strategies to grow and stay motivated. So is there something that you have right now that you think would really speak to that audience?
So I offer my starting point for working with anybody on anything is a 2-session starter pack. And that's at jjflizanes.com/work with JJ. That's because I don't do consultations. I don't do free consultations. You get an hour and I don't even want to do an hour because I want to uncover what's needed, start to implement some of the things to get you to point B, and then check in at point B and see what you need next. And if you don't need anything else, cool, I'll give you here's what you do and go along your merry way. And if you need more things, then there's other offerings after that would be more appropriate for whatever you need. Like I said, we have the podcast mastermind, which isn't always going to be open. We will be closing it. Doug and I have the mapping process, which is a little bit more, 3 times more than my work with JJ package, right? But you may not need it. So it just depends on, so I would say that's the cheapest, best use of your time, jjflizanes.com/work with JJ. Give me 2 sessions with you. Let me see what I can help you do and what you need. And then it may just be that's all you need. And then you're clear and you're off to the races, or we may uncover that you need a lot of support and a team to help get you there and other people to support you along the way. And that's what we do. We strategize how to get you money in the door fast by utilizing, and then really doing, it's a business overview. It's why are you doing your podcast? How is this going to be sustainable for you? Are you bringing you to the table? But again, I can do some of that in one of these 2 sessions, but it's a place to start. And again, even if it's not on podcasting, it could be in, if you're upper limiting yourself. I use Gay Hendricks' work. I've created a worksheet called Working on Your Big Leap. And I help people, get from point A to point B in that allowing more abundance, success, and love into your life and to know where you're upper limiting. and to have accountability for tools you can use to move beyond that and practice opening up your arms so you can raise your temperature and get more of the things that you want in your life.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing. There's so much value in this podcast, and I hope that our listeners enjoy it because I really enjoyed talking with you. And thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we peace out?
Well, thank you for having me, Christine. First of all, asking, you didn't really even know me, I don't think. And you just said, hey, I'm going to have you on my show. And that was like, okay, cool. Like, I love talking about this because, again, I didn't ever think I'd set out being a podcast coach. Never in a million years did I think would I ever be coaching podcasters. But when I saw people spending literally $50,000 for a year-long program and not making a single cent from it and being as stuck at the end of it that they were at the beginning of it, and I knew I could help them because they were people that wanted to build a community and profit from their community, I was like, I have to do this. Like, it was a calling. I was like, I can't sit by and let them waste this money and think that they failed. I can help them. I've done what they want to do. Let me help them. And so just, follow that in your life. Like, when you know you can help someone do something, create a program or a package or a course or something to help them. And that's, if you just trust that unfolding, then no matter what you do, podcast or business, it'll unfold beautifully for you, but it does require some trust. And if anyone wants to join my next 30-day manifestation challenge, I know you don't listen to my show, but maybe between now and then you'll listen to enough episodes that you'll stay in the group. I'm happy to invite all of you listening, if you'd like to try me out on my 30-day free manifestation challenge. You can go to jjflizanes.com/30day. That's 30DAY. It is completely free.
Wonderful.
Thanks for listening to Sales Training for Podcasters. To get additional information and to access more amazing content that will boost your sales game, visit salestrainingforpodcasters.com. Hey, do us a favor. Rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Again, thanks for listening.